upcoming primary seasons and getting you registered to vote, if you are of age, to be able to start doing that. Can we please make sure we are giving them our attention and respect by not being on our phones during their presentation, or doing things on our computers and other classwork at this time? And then the floor is all yours.
All right. So my name is Susanna. I'm going to be presenting here today, and I also have Karen and sorry again.
Libby or Elizabeth?
Elizabeth. Okay. Levy. All right. And I'm horrible remembering names, so I have to ask people to introduce themselves. So we are going to be going over the process of voting for the very first time, but also trying to answer the question of why should I care? And because I probably should put the power, but okay. So because we know it's hard sometimes to pay attention and get interested. We want to talk about power, right? The power of your vote. Money, the money you could make while participating in elections. And well, we're going to use a little candy to encourage participation throughout the class. The first thing I'm going to start, this first opportunity for candy. Is there anything that you care about, or any changes you would like to see? Like anything, any subject, there's no wrong answers, anything is worth candy. Anything you care about, anything you like to see, any kind of changes, it could be the country, in the world, at school, anywhere. Any thoughts? Anybody? All right, so I know it's early in the class, but I'm going to go over some things that people think about. And then at any time, if you decide, oh yeah, I care about this, go ahead and voice your opinion. Some people talk about the environment. Anybody here cares about the environment, like what's going to happen? Yes. Other folks care about cost of housing or cost of living in general, right? Is that something that any of you care about? Or parks, is there enough parks near here? Are the parks well kept? Anybody likes that? And we're totally good with candy, participation just for the sake of candy is totally valid. We just want you to get you awake. Or like folks care about justice system or policing, like how it's handled, right? So there's many other things that people care about. So a lot of people might hear about elections, but they usually hear about big elections, like presidential elections, sometimes governor. And all elections are important. But a lot of things that happen to us that affect us the most, they happen at the local level. And we almost never hear about that. For instance, did you know that each school district has a school board that's elected? And things like lunch hours or schedule, all those things that the school board has a lot of say in it. They have to follow some rules that are dictated at the state level, also by elected officials, but at the district level, the school board has a say. Or the mayor, city council, other things. So think about it this way. If you're out on the street and your car goes through a pothole, and it's like, who do you think you're going to call? Do you think you're going to call the president? Like, hey, White House, there is a pothole in my street. Who do you think you call? Is that the president? Anybody thinks the president?
You call your mayor or like your city council.
Exactly. And the nods get candy too.
Who else was nodding?
So that is right. And then we elect also even judges in Texas. So it's a lot of things that affect us in many different ways are decided at a local level. So another opportunity for candy. Do you have any idea how many people vote? And I'm going to go in percentage. In the last midterm, where in Texas in 2022, we elect our current governor. And besides governor, we also elected a bunch of people for Congress and mayor and a bunch of other things, right? So anybody has a guess if percent?
I actually have a question, it's a little bit off topic, but is that date the
The date,
latest that you can be to vote for this election cycle?
not to vote, is to register today. To vote in, well, you'll be able to vote in November, but if you want to vote in the primary, you have to be
Oh, okay,
18,
okay.
18 by, March 5th.
Well, we can
But
vote
you
in
can
the-
register today, by
Okay.
that day. You can vote in November if you're going to be 18 on the day of the election,
Perfect.
which is November, I forgot if it's 5th or 4th. But we have the date right there. But yes, so anybody that's going to be 18 before the November election can vote then, but that's the date to register today. So in 2022, anybody has a guess percent-wise?
Like 60%?
Okay, 60%. Anybody has another guess?
Also 60%.
Also 60%. Anybody else has a guess? I wish. I wish it was 60%. But in 2022, for governor, only 46% of the people that were registered in Texas voted. But just because those people voted, doesn't mean that everybody else is not affected by that. And this is only of the people that were registered, so, it could be much worse. And if you want to kind of see a different visual, right, like I like two different types of graphs, the round one, the donut chart, or just looking in terms of people. So less than half. If you think in this classroom, imagine if half of the classroom would make the choices that affect everybody else in anything. So it's like, how would the other side feel about it? The other thing is, that is the big election, but in the primaries that are coming up, it's, in local elections and primary, it's even lower. So in May, I don't know, in May last year, if anybody heard that the city of Austin was voting on a proposition, deciding how to hold police accountable in the city. I don't know if you heard that on the news, but there was like a lot on social media, a lot on the news about it. And even with all that hype, only 10 people actually showed up to vote on that proposition because it's a local election and people don't vote. So we're going to use an example, like a pizza party example. Does anybody here like pizza? Okay, I don't have pizza, so this is a pretend pizza. And here's how it's going to work. We assume the pizza already has, the basics, like the cheese and the tomato sauce. But you all get to vote in one extra topping. Each person can only choose one extra topping, and we're going to tell you how to vote. So, first thing, if you like mushroom to be your extra topping, raise your hand right now. All right, 1, 2. All right, if you like pepperoni to be your extra topping, all right, this is a lot. And if you like pineapple to be your topping, get up. Yes. Get up. Or yeah. Stand up. No, stay here. So pineapple. I'm a pineapple person too. And anybody else pineapple?
I regret it.
All right. So here's the deal. If everybody showed up to vote, pepperoni would win by a long shot, right? But in reality, not everybody show up to vote. Pepperoni went on social media and say, I'm pepperoni team, I want pepperoni pizza. It's like, I'm totally going to vote for pepperoni. I'm totally going to get pepperoni. But guess who showed up to the polls? Pineapple and mushroom folks. Maybe one pepperoni showed up. So, we like pineapple, and we know that pineapple is not very popular, so we make sure we vote every time to get our voice heard. And this is what happens a lot in elections. When a few number of people vote, they don't always represent an even distribution of everybody else. It's just like, the people that have the loudest voice that say, I want my way no matter what. I don't care that it's not popular. I'm going there and voting. They're going to get it. And who votes, right? Like, so do you like being stuck with somebody? Do you like being stuck with pineapple? No, right? In elections, that happens a lot. It's like you might not like something, but you didn't show up in that low turnout election. Well, somebody else is making that choice. The question is, whose voice is heard? And I'm going to talk here about whose voice heard based on age. So who do you think votes more? Like younger people, older people? You can give an age range. Okay, so give all the candies. Like, raise your hand if you said something and you want candy.
I said something.
Yeah.
I said a lot of things.
Yeah, so everybody here thinks older people vote the most?
Yeah.
You were right, but we're going to get there in a sec. This first chart just shows the people that voted by each age group. And only the ones that voted without looking at anything else, right? And then here, it's hard to see a trend because it's about the same, it goes up and down. So it looks like, there's a good number, like compared to young and old. But keep an eye on the chart as I present you the next one, which is the people who do not vote. What do you see on this chart?
A lot more younger people don't vote.
Exactly. And especially if you compare how many voted by how many didn't vote in each age group. Do you see what happens like on the first few columns? The red is bigger than the blue outline. In the middle is about the same. As you get older, the blue is bigger than the red. So that means that even though there are not that many people at this age, they use all the power they've got. They don't have as much power as young people, but they use all the power that they get, and because of that, they end up having more of their voice heard. And if you like to see this as a percentage, this is a percentage of the people who voted by the people who could have voted. So if you look there, and the folks younger than 30 on the dotted line, that it stays in, close to 30% or less. It's even worse if you look at the total population that's eligible. But then if you get here, like in the 60s and 70s, they're voting on the 70% and up. And that is a trend. This is specific for Travis County, but a similar trend happens throughout. So the good news is that trend is changing a little bit. Young people are voting more. There's a lot of votes out there. So the big question is, you have the ability to switch this trend. And what are you going to do about it? Are you actually going to be the generation that shows up and start making that line either flat or flip its direction? I'm going to look at the same data in a different way. I'm a data nerd, so I like to present information in various different ways. So the graph that we had there had the absolute numbers, right, that vote by age group. So we put each of the blue bars all together in this donut chart to represent like how many percent of the total people that voted were 18 to 24 and 25 to 30, right? So the blue and the yellow are all the folks younger than 30, Gen Z. So of everybody who voted, only 19% were that. It's not like tiny number, but it's still not significant. It's not super significant. So, but the interesting thing is with all the big red bars that you saw there are a lot more young people out there that could have voted. And let's say everybody over 30, everybody that's older than 30, continues to vote the way they always have. You don't mess with that part. But all the Gen Z, all the young folks, right? People in high school, college, first job, decided to show up. All of a sudden, combined, you could have 17 plus 24%. So you could have like 41% of all the votes. one thing to keep in mind, even elections that are considered like a done deal, completely landslide, that's usually never much more than 20% difference. So even if you didn't manage to convince every single Gen Z to vote, even if you got 60-70% kind of get up there, you could define the fate of pretty much every election that you set your mind to, because you have enough numbers to flip that coin. And you don't have to do anything about anybody that's older. Just let them continue to vote the way they always do. It just show up. And it's not something that you don't have to wait for a generation. If you all, in this coming election in March, everybody that's eligible decided to start doing that tomorrow, you could change those numbers tomorrow. You don't have to wait. It's a matter of whenever you decide to do that, that can change. And let's say you believe me that you could change and you have the power. How do you do it, right? In Texas, you have to be registered to be able to vote. And one of the things is, Texas is only one of 8 states in the country that you cannot register to vote online. And you have to be registered 30 days before election. That's kind of like, there's some states that you can show up at the polls and register on the same day. So Texas is not one of those, so you have to register before. Because you can't do online, you have to fill a piece of paper. The easiest way to get registered is to register today here with us, because we're going to take your form to the county and we're going to give you a receipt that's proof that you register. So you don't have to worry about it. You'll be registered. And even there's a form, a reminder card that you can fill out, that even if there is a problem with the registration and say, oh, there's something missing, we can text you and say, oh, the county needs another piece of information and they sent something in the mail. So even we can walk you through that. If you can't register today, you don't have the information, or you're not quite old enough, we can give you a mail form to mail it in. We can even have you, you can still fill it out, so we can check that everything's there, but you can do it, put it in the mail later if you don't, you're not quite old enough. Or if you really like to do in person, or if it's going to be a while before you can do, you can go to the tax office and get your registration done that way. You can also do it when you get your driver's license, but sometimes that doesn't go through. It's harder to verify, but it's another way. Yes?
Where can you find a volunteer?
Well, if you go to the League of Women's Voter website, we usually post in the volunteer opportunities where we're going, and then even you're not going to use that to sign up, you can see by the opportunities where we are.
Okay.
So we actually, this year, for the rest of the year, we are at several Alamo Draft House locations on Fridays and Saturdays in the evening, the busiest times. So that's a pretty good bet. If you show up at the Alamo for a night movie, you will find one of us there. But yeah, you could go to the website and we'll give you a card with a website, and that's super helpful. You can get candy. That's a really good question.
Oh, thank you.
So how do you know if you can register today? To vote in Texas and in the country, you have to be a U.S. citizen. So if you're born in the U.S., you know for sure you're a citizen. But what if you're not born in the U.S.? I was born in Brazil, but I'm a citizen because I was naturalized. So I'm what's called a dual citizen. I'm a citizen of Brazil and a citizen of the U.S., but I only vote here because that's where I live. Or if your parents worked abroad, you were born outside, you are automatically a citizen if you're a minor when that happened. You can also, if your parents become naturalized, you are also automatically a citizen if you are under 18 and living with them at the time. You have to be 18-year-old to vote. But you can register 2 months before your birthday, because otherwise, if you had to wait the 30-day period and your birthday is on election day, you would miss, right? So that's why you can register 2 months before. And I also talk about the felony terms, because that's something that each state handles differently. A lot of the things each state handles differently. And Texas is sort of a middle of the road. There are a couple of states that you never lose your rights. There are several states that as soon as you're off jail, you can regain your rights. In Texas, you have to get off parole, probation, or being off paper. And there are a few states that even after that, you have to jump through a bunch of other hoops to go through. So I just kind of like to put that as a perspective. And a lot of people don't know the rules for that. Anybody here is planning to move after you graduate? For college, for work, for military?
You're gonna go out of state for college, for example.
Yeah, or even out of the county, just within. So a lot of people, oh, I don't want to register now because I'm going to move. So if you're going to move after high school, and especially if it's within Texas, after you register the first time, you can update your voter registration online if you had a Texas ID or something. And if you go to college, you can decide if you, and it can be college here or out of state, if you keep your voter registration in your hometown, or if you register at your college town. And you can either like come back home to vote or vote by mail. So it's like if anybody has plans and wants to learn more about that, I can explain. Military is similar. You can decide what's your residence of record if you keep in your hometown or where you're going to be stationed. But the key is, even if you're moving at the end of when you graduate, there is going to be at least 3 elections, likely 3 elections before you graduate. So even if you plan to move, register now so that you'll be able to vote in this election. Once you register, make sure you actually show up to vote, because yes, registration is the first step, but if you just register and didn't vote, you might still be stuck with pineapple pizza. Yes?
What's the website called if you want to change your address?
VoteTexas.gov, and we're going to give you like there's a little bookmark that we're going to give that has that, but you can give him that already.
Okay, thank you.
And a lot of people say they don't vote because they don't know what's on the ballot, they don't know how to find out, they do not want to be an uninformed voter. So go ahead and do your research. Some states, they sent a mail package with all the information, including candidate statements. But in Texas, we rely on organizations like the League of Women Voters that creates what's called a voter's guide. There is an electronic version and a paper version. The paper version, you see everything for all the elections in Travis County. The electronic version, you enter your address and narrows down to just what's on your ballot. So it's like there's a use for both. It's the paper one is nice, so you can make notes on it. And votetravis.com shows what's on your ballot, but what the guide has in addition is that it sends questions to the candidates and the candidates answer. So that helps you figure out a little bit more about the candidates before you go vote. And it's the starting point for elections that you don't hear as much, especially local elections. But like you can talk to friends and family, check local newspapers, and favorite organizations and see if they have any opinion on it. And then you can think like from what you saw yourself and what you discussed with others, make up your own mind. But it's kind of like, when you're studying for something, the more sources you have, the better informed you're going to be. And here is a good place to make a cheat sheet. You can't make a cheat sheet for your test, but for elections, you're totally allowed. One of the things, I was going to use my cell phone to show, but one of the things is you cannot use your cell phone at the polling place. You can have on your pocket, on your backpack, but you cannot use it. Anybody has any idea why you cannot use your cell phone? Pictures.
You could record the votes or something?
Yeah, so you could take pictures, you could record. I'm using my phone to record my presentation so I can use that for other presenters to learn. But imagine if you're at a polling place making your vote and it's up to you, like that's your vote, you don't want anybody else to know. Like if you want people to know, you tell it yourself, but somebody's behind you and, trying to take pictures. That would not be cool, right? That's invading your privacy. But you can take a piece of paper and you feel forgot, you can always ask a poll worker and they'll tell you just to go over there, use your cell phone, and you can
voter ID requirements, do you need all of these? Or
no, it's one of them, and that's the next thing that after this slide, we're going to be talking about the voter ID, and I'll go through. So find your polling location. So it's coming right after this one. In Travis County and most counties around us, you can vote in any polling location within the county, both during early voting and election day. And Travis County has a handy website where you can find where the polling places are, and in real time during election period, you can see, the wait times based on like, it shows like the callers, right? That's poll workers every hour we have to update this to say if there's a line or not. And so you can choose if you vote, the closest location are the ones without lines. In each election, the actual polling locations might change a little bit, but it's like, there's some that are always polling places, but the others that might change a little bit. So during early voting, there's a church nearby that is going to be a polling place.
Actually, this time for you guys, it's Oakwood Library is gonna be open for early voting and election day. So
Oh, you'll look it up? Yeah, because I
I'm
saw only
working
the
it.
church. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because I only saw the church. But yeah.
Exactly, there's something that, yeah, I was surprised. Anyway, so that's y'all, so that's locked in.
And then that information is already there on that site, so you can kind of look it up and make up one. And vote early, right? Because in Texas, one thing that we have that is really good is that we have almost 2 weeks of early voting for the big elections. That means that in addition to election day, you have many days to choose from, so that's what's more convenient for your schedule. So you were asking about ID. So there's all those IDs, so you can use one of those IDs, that's considered like the primary forms of ID. So it would be like either a Texas driver's license, or if you have the Texas ID but not the driver's license yet. There's even like a specific one for election that it's a free ID that you could request. Or you can use a gun license or citizenship certificate, like if you're naturalized, or if you're a part of a military family, or if you're a military, you can use a military ID or a passport, either the whole book or just the passport card. So can you tell me one form of photo ID that is not on this list? Can anybody tell me which form of ID that you all might have?
School ID?
School ID. So, remember like when I say like a lot of elections matter, even local elections and different elections? So the people that make the rules about what kind of ID you get are people who elect for the Texas legislature. And they make the rules about IDs and a lot of other things about voting, like the period of early voting. So the people who elect affect the rules of how we vote. If you don't have any of those IDs, you can still vote. You just have to sign another piece of paper on at the polling place. And we'll go over that if that's the case for you. But for instance, if you have a birth certificate, if you don't have the other IDs but have a birth certificate, a US birth certificate, that works. Or if you receive your voter registration card in time, that works as a secondary ID. But if you have that specific question, when we go around, we can kind of go through and see this there. All right, who here is willing to participate with me in a 10-second or less pretend phone call? And you get more candy, you get like 3 pieces of candy if you participate on that. All right, anybody, did you raise your hand first or no?
Sure.
All right, so he raised it before you. You have to have faster hands. All right, so what's your name? What's Thomas? All right, so just pretend you're answering the phone.
Okay. Hello.
Hi, Thomas, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Would you like to go to the movies?
Yeah, I'd love to go to the movies.
All right, bye. Okay, are we going to the movies? But what's missing?
Yeah, the voting thing?
Yeah. What movie, right? What movie? And then, well, where is it showing? Yeah, well, which show time? Like what day? Because otherwise we said we're going to the movie, but we might be going to different movies, or when we go, the movie's no longer showing because it stopped playing on Thursday and the new movie showed up. So that is the same thing for voting. You might be saying that you're voting. You might be talking on social media, yeah, I'm voting. But you didn't pick a day, you didn't look up the dates. And then maybe Wednesday, the day after the election, you go, yeah, I'm totally going to vote. And you go like, oh, but the last day I could have voted was yesterday. So make sure you vote early. And find out where, we show you where you can look up where. And how you get there, right? Is it close enough to walk, bike? Do you have a car? Are you going with friends? You can take the bus. Just figure out how you're going to get there. And what are we wearing? So anybody has any idea what you cannot use at a polling place? Any guesses?
Sandals.
Okay, candy. That is not it, but you get candy anyway. Any other thoughts of you cannot wear at the polling place?
Something advertising who you're voting for?
Exactly. So this is called electioneering. Anytime you're trying to influence somebody within the polling place, it's called electioneering. There is like a range, there is a area around the polling place that's considered like, this is your space. Nobody can't be trying to talk you into anything at that point. And it just like, if the person is on the ballot, or is the proposition on the ballot, or if the party is on the ballot, right, you can't wear it. You can wear, like, if you want, like, I love Jimmy Carter, or I love Ronald Reagan, it's totally fine, they're not on the ballot. You just cannot have anything, a shirt, a hat, a button of somebody that's on the ballot, on the election that you're voting on.
Or the party, you can't walk in
Or
with
the party.
with an RNC or a DNC shirt.
Yes. So, it's the very first time you're voting. Make a big deal out of it. Make a plan, go vote with friends, and then go eat ice cream, have pizza, something. Or just go swim at parking springs. Whatever makes that an interesting day. Or, when you're done voting, you get your sticker, go outside the polling place, take a group selfie and send to your teacher. I'm sure she's going to be super happy and
We
proud.
get extra points.
We'll all be graduated.
Extra credit.
Sure,
No, and
extra credit, yeah.
If they vote in the
The
primary,
primaries
In
and
the
the
primary,
primary
yeah.
runoff, yeah.
I cannot give extra credit for voting because let's say a student is not a citizen, they can't receive that extra
And
credit
you
and it's
can't-
not
and you can't.
fair.
and you also, you can't trade anything for voting, even if everybody
Yeah,
could
right.
vote.
So, no, but you should go do it anyway.
Self-satisfaction.
Yes.
Commit voter
It's part
fraud
of
for
being a
extra
grown
credit?
up.
No, why would you want a felony?
All
Okay,
right.
So sometimes businesses in town, you'll bring your I voted sticker and you can get, I don't know, a place in town did, pizza slices years ago.
Yeah, I'm not sure they're doing it again.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
technically they shouldn't, but, so, let's say you're all ready, but you haven't voted yet, because that's the first time you're voting. Anybody here has voted before, by any chance? No? Okay. I'm glad you have. All right, so, when you show up, the first thing is going to happen is a poll worker is going to ask you for an ID. And if you do not have any of the ones that are listed, then they will explain, ask you, what do you have? And they will explain, what you can use. And then they just say like, okay, you just kind of sign this extra piece of paper. Again, if you have questions about that, on the side we go. And I recommend, if you don't have an ID, to go vote early, because if for some reason you show up with something that you didn't have anything that worked, you have another opportunity to do it.
Always go early.
It's always good.
Always go, because, when election day comes up, it's one day, right? You guys, you and your friends are gonna do it after school. All of a sudden, somebody had to go here in your family, somebody had to go there, and you're bringing your sibling to soccer practice, okay? And all of a sudden, that just falls apart. Anything can happen on one day.
Flat
So,
tire.
Do that early voting, okay? Use early voting, and can they bring, their,
Yeah, if
Their voter
they have in
registration.
time, like, it's like they might, like, if they register today, they might not get in time for the March primary, but if
Yeah.
you have it, bring it. It's useful. Even if you have another ID, it's useful to bring that for the first time you vote.
yeah,
Don't panic if you don't have it, but if you have it, it doesn't hurt. It has useful information. So in Travis County, we vote electronically, but we have a paper ballot confirmation. So when you check in here, the clerk will give you a big, long, white paper that has a barcode on top. And that barcode we insert in the machine that reads it, populates all your choices on the screen, so you use a touch screen to make your choices. At the end, you review, depending on the election, might be 10, 20, 30 things to choose from. Review everything and see if it's all good. Remember, it's okay if there are any races that you don't know, that you didn't study, skip them. It's not a test. There is no penalty for leaving stuff blank. Doesn't hurt. But just make sure you make all the choices of the things that you're confident with. At the end, you get to review
You
your
don't have to
choices.
fill out the whole thing.
Yeah, you can skip. You can vote in one thing only if you want. You can actually leave all blank if you want. There won't be any, your voice won't be used for anything, but you can leave all blank. But it's common that people vote in some of them. Then after you review your choices on the screen, you get to print your ballot. And let's say you were reviewing finally on the ballot and you didn't catch before, it's like, oh no, this is not what I wanted to vote on. Or like, oh no, I wanted to vote on this one and I forgot I left that blank. So don't panic. You can go talk to the poll worker and the poll worker will cancel that ballot and let you do it again. You have to start over and vote again, but it's like you get canceled. You have up to three times to do that. I've seen people have to do that once. I've never seen anybody have to do it twice. There's always a first time. I'm sure, but it's just don't panic. And because of that, like, you haven't actually voted. The reason you can do that is because you haven't actually voted until you walk that paper ballot to the scanner. The scanner is a computer that sits on top of a big black bin. Inside the big black bin, like it's locked, has another compartment, another bin that gets secure at the end of each day that saves your paper ballots. So the computer reads your vote. It doesn't have any information that links to you, but it reads your vote. It saves that electronically. And then as a backup, it keeps stored your paper ballot. So it's like it's super secure in case something happens with electronic data. It's never, it's not a thing that happens, but it serves there as a guarantee, as a secondary layer of security. And that's where you get your I voted sticker. And a lot of people joke that they only vote because of the sticker.
But they're joking.
They're joking, and we all collect our stickers. If anybody looks at the back of my phone, you can see there are a couple of stickers that I collected over the years. So another reason a lot of people don't vote is because they think their vote doesn't matter, as in just one vote is not going to make a difference. And there are a couple of things to think about, right? When I said like less than half of the people that vote, that's a lot of people that might not have voted because they thought they vote didn't make a difference. But if all of them voted, there were more people that didn't vote than the ones that did, and the election could have been completely different, right? Because there was more people that maybe, oh, my vote doesn't count, it's just one. But in the local elections, it's even more than just looking at big pictures. I'm going to show a couple examples that happened in 2022, and this is not even something that is rare. This happens a lot. I don't have to look pretty hard for this. I picked these examples because they happen to be where I live. But in the city council race in District 9, it's like City of Austin has 10 districts. So each district, the city council, is in charge, responsible for 10% of the population of Austin. That's a lot of people. That district went to a runoff because nobody went flat out. And then in the runoff, you have a really low turnout. So what happened is the difference between the person that is our city council right now and the person that kind of went home is 343 votes. So how many seniors we have in this school? Roughly? More than 500? So if this was your district, which is actually not super far from here, 9 is kind of a little south, like Cherrywood and downtown kind of area. But if it was your district, and it's very common that everybody in the school lives in, mostly on the same school, city district, or maybe one or two. If you all got together and decided to vote for the same person, or you decide, you could have changed that election. This is another one that happened in the primary, because this county commissioner race didn't have an opponent in the general election. This is like a person that runs a quarter of the county, the Texas, Travis County. The difference was 248 votes. So this person oversees like 250,000 people, because it's 1/4 of the entire county of Travis. And that person decides, how much money poll workers get, or helps decide that. So it's like very few votes make a direct difference, especially in low turnout elections. And there are cases that are much closer. There was a state rep that won by 4 votes, like a few cycles ago. There was a guy in Ohio, that he won his race by 1 vote, and his opponent actually didn't even bother to vote. So he won by the vote that his opponent didn't show up for. So I mentioned primary.
By 1 vote.
By 1 vote. Yeah, this was somebody in Ohio, I think it was a sheriff, or it was a very local race. So anybody here knows what a primary is? Anybody heard of primaries on the news?
It's the,
Y'all, we had a whole unit on this. Everyone raise your hand for that question. You all were in my class in the fall, and I taught you primaries and caucuses, and what's the difference, and which comes first, and everyone should raise their hand.
All right, okay, we good thing we bring out a lot of candy. So,
They don't all deserve on that one if they can't remember. We had a whole
okay,
unit on it.
you tell me who to hold from. So, the primaries we hear about a lot on the news are the primaries for president. And all the states have primaries, some states have caucus instead of primaries. But for president, because the entire country has to select who's going to go to November together, each state holds their primary for president, and then they have to consolidate all the votes to get through. And it's more complicated than that, but it's something like that. But for the state races and below, it's like whoever gets decided in the Texas primary is the person for that party to go through. And in Texas, there are 2 parties that hold primaries, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. But there are 2 other parties that they hold conventions or caucus to decide their candidates, the Libertarian and the Green Party. So in March, we're going to be voting either Democrat or Republican. We have what's called an open primary, so you don't have to declare your vote before. You just when you go to the poll, you choose which primary you're voting on. But you have to stick with one. In the same cycle, you can't vote for both, right? It's just one or the other. And if there's a runoff, if nobody gets more than 50% in a given race, you have to stick with the same party. Then after that, in November and other cycles, it doesn't matter, you start over.
But keep in mind, if you didn't go to the primary and then there's a runoff, you can still go and vote
Exactly.
in that runoff. But at that runoff, you will choose your party, and you have to choose so you can get that ballot. Okay.
And you choose on the screen, right? You don't have to say, I'm
when you
doing
check
this or
that,
not.
There's an iPad, they call it an e-poll book, it's an iPad.
And so the dates, so again, if you will be able to vote in the primary if you're going to be 18 by March 5th. And if you might be able to register today, but you're not going to be able to vote in the March primary, but then you could be eligible to vote in the runoff, because the runoff is going to happen in May.
And you ought to do it just so you see everything. I don't know if
Just
there's,
so you
know,
learn how,
Yeah,
yes.
you learn, and that way November comes along and you're like, yeah. Or there's one in May. There'll be one on Saturday in May,
Yeah.
which is local.
And we don't know exactly what's going to be there.
Yeah.
So here's a question. Who here cares about making money? Everybody? All right. So, did you know in high school, even before you can vote, you can actually work as a poll worker. In Travis County, well, you can work up to 2 days. In Travis County, you usually get assigned election day. But you get to make $20 an hour. It's an excused time off of school. And you only have to be 16 to vote. And it's a great thing for for a resume if you're applying for college or for a job. It's a great thing to add to the resume. Like, I work as a poll worker, I learn all the stuff, I'm a reliable person, I work for 14 hours. It's a 14-hour day. And you get $20. So who can tell me how much is 20 times 14?
It's
280.
280, I heard on the back there somewhere. So if you want, you need to get approval from a teacher and a guardian or a parent or guardian. And I have the form for that, but the key is, if you want, you email this email and be the person that's snagging and call to follow up. Because they receive a lot of applications. They need a lot of people, but they also receive a lot of applications. So because they want people that they know are going to be reliable, if you're the person that emails saying, I already got the approval from my teacher, and you follow up and you call, you're more likely to be called. And if you get in March, you might be able to also work in the other 2 elections in May, if they happen. You can work anytime. Like, if you're done with school, but you're going to take a semester off or something, or if you're staying and doing some other additional stuff and everything, you can always work later, once you're out of school too. And then there's no limit on how many days you can work. And here's another thing you can do. There's no money involved, just, spreading democracy kind of thing. If you want to do, help your friends and family to get registered, you can become what's called a volunteer deputy registrar. That's what we are. We are authorized by Travis County and other counties for some of us, to register voters. And you can do that, and if any of you is interested in doing that, it's you can either watch a Zoom or a video and take a test. And if any of you is participates in student groups and would like to set a drive or want some help with that, just email your teacher and they can get in touch with us, and we can help you get started the first time around, but then later you can figure out how to do on your own. But it's something that's cool to do. This is the end of the presentation, and we're going to go around and see who is ready to register today. And I'm going to leave this behind here because a lot of times people are interested in that. And all right, so let's go around